I tattooed Philippines 413 instead of Philippians 413 on a girl one time. Welcome back to Small Biz Nightmarez, the show about the horror stories that unfold in small business ownership. I'm your host, Amanda Braschi. I'm a freelance copywriter, a fellow small business owner, and today I am joined by Alissa Waters of Shade Tattoo Studio. She is, of course, my beautiful and talented sister, which you, I'm sure, will see immediately. But also, she specializes in creative and medical tattooing, which is something that we'll get into as we get on with the show. But Alissa, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm excited to be here.
Does this remind you, I don't know if you remember this, but when we were kids, we used to do fake interviews, and we did one with, I don't know, we're not sponsored, but we did a Bare Minerals one as
absolutely.
children. Do you remember that?
The kabuki brush.
Brush.
Specifically
Swirl
from Bare
Tab
Minerals.
Buff.
Yeah.
But that's what this made me think of, because we actually used to do this as kids, and we used to do videos and music videos and just little skits. So I'm excited to see where this goes today.
Bringing me back.
Yes. So we're going to start out. I want to get to know a bit more about you and your business, and then we'll get into the meat of the show where I share some nightmares in the tattoo industry, which I'm excited about because I feel like tattoo in general is a notorious industry for nightmares. It has a lot of stereotypes. It has a lot of history, a lot of edge. So I'm excited to share some of those with you. But first, I want to get to know more about you. How did you get into tattooing and where you are today?
So I got into tattooing in actually kind of a convoluted fashion. I drew myself a tattoo, actually based on a tattoo that I drew for our mom, which was kind of a addition to a tattoo that she had half done by the eventual owner of the shop that I ended up working at. So I drew myself a rose. I actually went in and wanted this tattooed behind my ear, and that was a terrible...
I didn't realize that's where you wanted it.
I did.
Yeah.
It was a terrible spot to get this particular tattoo. Spike, the owner of that shop, was like, that's not a good place for that. I really like your drawing. I think we should do it somewhere else. He talked me into getting it done on my back, and eventually went in and got that done by him and spent many hours of like a couple sessions working on that with him. I built a relationship with him by doing that, but at the same time, I had also just been accepted to UW-Madison. I was planning on actually going into medicine, specifically maybe using some of my art skills to get into plastics. So like reconstructive surgery, things like that. That was my goal going into things. And he had offered me a tattoo apprenticeship, and I turned it down initially because I kind of thought it was a fantasy job. I really didn't think that I could actually be a tattooer. Yeah. I thought that was...
did it appeal to you though? The idea,
it
like
really
as a fantasy job?
Yeah, it really did. But for some reason, it just didn't click that that's like something I could actually do. It seemed,
make money at?
Right.
Yeah.
But a couple years into school, I just didn't have the time to do a whole lot of art. I was doing a lot of science. I was in long labs that kind of were the same length of a art class lab in college, and I wasn't able to do a lot of it. And I was getting frustrated that I couldn't do my art, and I didn't really like the path that I was on. So I called him back up, and I was like, hey, is there any way that I can try this again with you? And he was like, oh, so you don't want to be a doctor anymore, huh?
How long was that, like, between where he had initially offered and you like reached back out to him?
That was 2 years.
There was 2 years in between that where you actually went back and were like, okay, this might be worth pursuing.
It was.
Cool.
Yeah. And I was drawing a lot in that period of time. I was incredibly fortunate that he both remembered me and that he offered it to me again. Yeah. So I actually did my apprenticeship while I finished my bachelor's degree. I actually have a bachelor's in microbiology that I'm not using whatsoever, but I thoroughly enjoyed doing that too because I was very interested in science. But working and being able to do my art in a tattoo shop was what I wanted to do. So I continued to do it after being there for those last 2 years. And then I feel like I was able to combine those two things later in my career by doing medical related tattoos to kind of bring it full circle in a very convoluted fashion.
Yeah. So tell us what medical tattooing is and what that looks like for your clients.
So mainly what I do is areola tattooing, which can be done post-mastectomy, whether that's from breast cancer or top surgeries or lifts sometimes require changing the pigmentation of that tissue. So that's the main service I offer. Sometimes I do scar coverage stuff that's a little bit more difficult. But yeah, the areola tattooing is the main reason I got into the medical tattooing.
I wanted to ask you, because you just said you've always been an artist, and as your sister who grew up with you, I've always seen that in you. And my first memory of your art was you doing this insanely meticulous pixel art on DeviantArt or one of those websites in the early 2000s that was where like a forum where you could share your artwork. And I just remember being so like just in awe of your skill on that. And it's just amazing to me to see, like, because that was the first thing I saw of you. And then the transformation of you now putting that onto people's skin is amazing.
Yeah, there was like a big trend of people creating like dolls. There was like specific website where you could, I don't know, change out the dolls and clothes and stuff. But I would actually go in and create these like pixel by pixel drawings. And then, I definitely had a DeviantArt account. I wonder if that still exists.
Oh my gosh.
It's kind of interesting that you say that actually, because it's almost what I do now. Specifically for the areola tattoos.
Yeah. Okay.
So maybe that was a good way of like translating that skill.
Yeah.
I haven't really thought about that actually. Yeah, because I was zooming in and doing individual pixels to make a larger picture.
Mostly like women and like at the time what I thought were hyper realistic looking.
Yeah.
So you were doing a lot of that skin tone matching and like gradients and wow. I mean, I don't know
That's
the technicalities
actually,
of it. But
I did not even think about that being a translatable skill. But.
Well, we used to sit at the computer and I would just watch you. We'd either play The Sims and I'd watch you play The Sims.
Yeah. Which was another thing that I only did the design aspect of.
Exactly. Or we'd sit and you'd do something like that and I'd watch you just create. And I loved that. I loved watching you design. What is the common myth about tattooing? As I mentioned earlier, tattooing, I feel like the industry has a lot of history, a lot of stereotypes, a lot of edge. What myths about your industry do you kind of debunk? Or are there any that you can debunk for us?
I think one of the biggest ones is that tattooers are intimidating or mean or are going to judge you for what you want in your tattoo. Not to say there's not people that are like that.
Right.
But if you come across somebody that you actively feel like that when you are meeting with them, they're probably not the person for you. I would say most tattooers are kind of nerdy and maybe a little bit introverted. They're very into their art.
They're creatives.
They're creative. And they're not judging you for the thing that you want.
Yeah.
And if you feel like that, then it's probably not the place for you. But there's so many amazing artists that are, I don't know, having tattoos or having kind of an alternative look sometimes I think can intimidate people. Usually we're all just kind of big softies.
Yeah.
And you just need to get to know us.
Right.
And I think that myth goes away pretty quickly when you realize who you're working with.
Yeah. I feel like this also shows up in your actual space. Like the shop you started at was much more classic tattoo shop. You walk in, there's like heavy metal playing, you know, it's cold, it's edgy, and you kind of feel like you're gritting and bearing the tattoo. It's just that kind of idea of like masculine, that kind of thing. And then your current business, especially because you have more sensitive clientele, especially with the medical tattooing, you have a more almost as close as a tattoo shop can be to like a spa environment, I'd say is your shop. It's private. Well, why don't you tell us about it? But it's private. It's more relaxed.
Yeah, I tried to combine aspects of what I like about a traditional tattoo shop with like things that are going to make people feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is having the private space, first of all, I think is really important. You can come in and be the only person that's getting tattooed.
Yeah.
You're not going to have somebody next to you that's getting something done that's like going to both maybe see your body or
be screaming during their own appointment.
Or like in any way be disrupting your appointment.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of choose what you want to do as far as like talking to me or not during your tattoo. Having that private space, I think, is really nice. Just being able to kind of fully spread out and bring stuff to your appointment, I think people can always appreciate.
Do people like to have like music in and ignore you, or is it kind of depending on the personality type?
It's very dependent on the personality type. Like I do a lot of talking with people, which I think is very fun, but there's definitely clients that do much better just coming in and completely zoning out, putting headphones in. And I'm fine with that too. I tend to actually work a little bit faster in that scenario, but I also really like getting to know the person in my chair too, if they want to sit and chat with me.
Cool. What is something you wish you would have known before you started your business?
I feel like I wish I would have known how much of my business was going to be like things I was going to have to do outside of physically being there and tattooing, right? It doesn't stop. You're kind of, when you decide to start your own business and you are the only person to be doing all of the things, it is kind of a 24/7 situation, whether you want it to be or not. So specifically with tattooing, when I'm in the shop, I am tattooing, I'm working on people, and then I go home and I'm often still working on
You're designing
stuff.
things at home.
Yeah, I'm designing things. And then there's, a whole other administrative side and things that go along with owning the business itself that you have to do as well. So it's not my favorite thing about the business, but it is something that you have to do if you're going to own stuff. I've gotten much better at being able to delegate things as I've, first of all, gotten the money to do that, but also been willing to give it up too. Sometimes you got to take a step back and be like, oh, I'm doing too much. Maybe it would be better to pay somebody to help me do this, or learn how to better manage my time so I'm not constantly working and thinking about work.
Right. And that's also kind of as you've grown, you have, I'd say you're pretty well known in the Madison area. You have a solid clientele and you're somebody who is booked and has the ability to close your books and open your books and kind of have that like demand. You have now hired someone, right, to help you kind of manage that aspect of it, just because the influx of inquiries is frequent or your schedule builds out. What is that like, managing someone else?
I'm arguably bad at email.
Okay,
too,
arguably bad at email. Yep. Outsource the email.
It's just not my favorite thing. I'm really great at in-person communication with people. That was just one thing that I would struggle with, especially when you're trying to manage your time during the day. I want to give the person in my chair my full attention, and people expect you to be answering during normal business hours. Right. And also, if you answer outside of normal business hours, then there's this expectation that you're available all the time. So that's where it was a little bit hard to balance that. And so having somebody else be able to help me schedule people and answer during like the times that people would normally expect them to answer is better.
What is your tattoo style? I know there's, even on your website, you have a list of things you love to do, certain art styles and you love to do versus things that you don't do. And because you've built up such a good following and a brand for yourself, you have the ability to make those decisions, which is kind of every business owner's dream. It's like, these are the things I love to do. This is what I'm not even going to, if this is what you want, I'm not your artist. Yeah. What are some of those distinctions?
Well, and so that ability to make those distinctions came with time, right? Like you discover your style over time, first of all. And then your ability to say no to things, I feel like, goes up over time. But I actually have kind of two polar opposite styles that I like doing. I really like doing like high contrast black and gray stuff. So with dots. So dot work, black and gray. And then full saturated color. So it's where we start to get to in the in-betweens that I don't enjoy doing stuff as much. It's almost like the higher contrast versions on either end of the spectrum is what I enjoy doing.
Cool.
I like doing floral. I like doing like people forms and stuff like that. I don't really discriminate when it comes to subject matter as long as I kind of the stylistically,
Was there a time in your career where you felt very out of your comfort zone that you can think of?
I mean, almost the entirety of an apprenticeship is out of your comfort zone, right? So I would say, there's still on a day-to-day basis things that challenge me and that I need to kind of push myself a little bit.
Yeah.
But during that beginning period of time when you're learning how to tattoo is really tough mentally because you feel like you have this ability on paper that doesn't necessarily translate right away to skin. And you're trying to learn how to draw to create a good tattoo for skin. But you have this expectation of yourself that you're probably not going to meet in like your first, year of tattooing.
And I can't imagine the thought of doing your first tattoo on someone else, on someone's skin. Like that jump from paper to skin is terrifying.
Yeah. And, you have to find somebody who is like willing to allow you to do that and trust you to be able to work on them.
Yeah. I have one of your first tattoos.
Yeah.
I got it on my 18th birthday.
Yep.
I was a little baby.
You picked wimp. It
was a really big tattoo in a really difficult spot, but it's beautiful. And to this day, it's beautiful. But I love looking at it because like all of my tattoos are yours, have been done by you. And I can see your evolution through all of my tattoos. Like the first one you did when you were like 22.
Yeah.
So now it's just kind of a cool evolution to see on other people's bodies.
Yeah, but it's pretty nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
And I would say, there's an extra layer of nerve-wracking, honestly, when you're working on family.
Yeah.
I was always told by the man who mentored me that he doesn't recommend tattooing your family. But
I was the same with hair when I did hair.
Right. There's a certain comfort level, but you're also going to have to live with it and see it all the time.
Right.
So it's something that you want to make sure you're doing your best. Obviously, you want to do your best with every single tattoo you're putting in the world, but there's this added pressure sometimes with family members. But there was a specific day I remember when I was asked to tattoo myself as part of my apprenticeship, which I do feel like is an important part of an apprenticeship, actually, because it does kind of make you take your skills and see what you're doing to other people.
Oh, but doing that to yourself is such a mental roadblock. Inflicting pain on yourself, inflicting beautiful pain on yourself is wow.
And I remember that day very, very clearly because, my boss had a specific schedule where he would tattoo from like noon to 3 and he would leave and go home and have dinner and stuff with his family and then come back and tattoo from 6 to 9. So 3 o'clock before he left, I was sitting at the desk and I was just working on flash stuff, drawing, and he was like, I think today's going to be the day that you tattoo yourself. So when I get back at 6, maybe have something ready to go.
Oh my gosh.
So I didn't have anything drawn.
So you picked something in the matter of minutes of what you were going to put on your body?
In that couple of hours that he was gone, I drew myself a rose and I was like, I guess this is the one I'm doing today.
And it's on your ankle?
It's on my ankle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oof.
You can really only tattoo your own legs.
Right. That makes sense.
It's kind of hard. You need both hands to be able to do stuff. I didn't really want to put it on my thigh, which probably would have been the easier spot to do it. But yeah, I chose my inner ankle, and that's kind of a spicy spot.
Spicy.
And it definitely just takes a specific kind of mental energy to want to hurt yourself.
Did you finish that?
Well,
did you finish that in one session?
I actually didn't. I mostly because of when we started the tattoo. I feel like I was just slow at the time, right? And we started it at like 6 p.m. And so I filled it in on a different day, which just added another day of me having to tattoo myself. But
wow,
it took until some extreme boredom in COVID for me to decide to tattoo myself again. So
what's your
that was
other
many
one you
years
did?
Later. I've done 2 other ones.
I didn't know you'd done more since that one on yourself.
I've got one on the side of my knee that I did on myself.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The knee?
Yeah. No, I actually filmed a time lapse and stuff of that. But yeah, I couldn't tattoo anybody else. So why wouldn't I just tattoo myself again?
I guess so.
Yeah.
I know it's a question everybody asks. What's the most painful spot to get tattooed? But you are heavily tattooed. In your experience, what was the most painful spot?
I think there's often this like idea that like bonier areas are more painful to get tattooed. And I don't disagree with that, but I would say that like that low side back, like love handle area where you would think I would have.
Which is where I got my first.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. So you would think you have like, I don't know, a little more cushion there, but it is very nervy and very painful. That would be my number one.
How do you protect your time as a small business owner? We kind of mentioned that you have some help, especially with the administrative side, but you mentioned too that you're bringing this home a lot.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you do at work or at home to help put a bit of a line between those two things?
For sure. I try my best, even though I'm not always very good at this, at like keeping specific hours now. I didn't really have set hours when I started. And I think part of that was just to make sure that I had appointments and that I was consistently busy and actually able to make money. But I have specific days a week that I'm working, and then I have specific hours that I really try to fit stuff into. I also try to be more communicative with clients and have kind of stronger boundaries as to like when I'm going to communicate.
Yep.
Like I said, I don't always do that. Sometimes I'm like, I shoot myself in the foot a little bit with like answering a text or sending something out at like, I don't know, 8 or 9 p.m. when I probably shouldn't do that. The consistent days of the week that I have created for myself has really helped.
Good.
Making sure that I have the same days off every week, I think is important.
Awesome. Are you doing any design work at home on those days off?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. So they're just days you're not in the studio.
Yeah. To be fair, one of those days just kind of can end up being an admin day, or it can be a drawing day. But that's okay. I think that that's important that I have the ability to choose whether or not that day off is going to end up being a true day off or not. It's just that I can't actively be tattooing on every single day of the week.
Okay, now I'd like to share some nightmares. As we talked about earlier, the tattoo industry is kind of full of things that could go wrong. So I want to talk about some of these things that we've found online, some nightmare stories, and get your reaction to them. First, I'll never give out my personal number again because of this girl.
Oh, no.
I did a small tattoo on her. She came back to the shop a couple of days later, about 10 shades tanner, and said that the tattoo was messed up. Then told me that she had a beach vacation planned in a couple days, so I needed to fix the tattoo right now before her trip. I told her to come back after the trip. She left and then blew up my phone, insulting me with like 50 messages about how I ruined her and was a piece of shit. I also had a full sleeve booked with her partner, who then started texting me nasty insults, so I obviously canceled the appointment. Someone else at the shop eventually offered to touch up her tattoo, and she screamed at him, so he kicked her out too. Most people are cool and sweet, though. The random crazy people are always a shock.
Oof.
So there's actually another story that is the same idea, but people who don't take care of their tattoos correctly.
Yeah.
It was a common thread in a lot of these.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about like what you kind of encourage people to do, because it's a wound, right? It is something that has to heal, and it requires consistent care for weeks in order to heal correctly. And if somebody's not doing that right, like tanning, going on a vacation, you know.
Ugh, I can't even tell you how many times I've been partway through a tattoo and then somebody tells me what their weekend plans are. They're like, oh, I'm going to the lake, or I'm going to like, you know, a water park this weekend.
Gonna go jump in the foam pit at the gym.
And then, you know, I have to break it to them that like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
I have it on the consent form that like, do you have any plans like this? Because I try to get that in people's head before they get tattooed to maybe like remind them like, hey, are you going on vacation? Are you going to do something? So we don't run into that where you're going to have to change your plans. Because going to a lake or like going in the water, getting tan on top of your new wound is not a good idea. That's how you're going to get, that's how your tattoo's going to disappear. It's going to how you might get an infection. Right. That's when things are going to go severely wrong. And most of the time, the form that you're going to sign at the shop is going to say that you're planning on adhering to the aftercare instructions that they're going to give you. You should be receiving aftercare instructions as part of getting a tattoo. If you do not receive them, that is also a red flag and a problem. We don't have the ability to necessarily fix your tattoo either, depending on what has happened to it based on your actions while you're healing it.
What does your aftercare process look like?
A bit depends on what method you decide to go with.
I think you've mentioned to me that artists kind of have their specific ways they like to go
for sure.
Camps that people like to do.
But the main thing across the board with any tattoo that I think everybody would agree with, that you are trying to just make sure that it is staying clean the entire healing process, which usually is around 2 weeks for most people. Yeah. So that's the amount of time that you're supposed to stay out of the sun, stay out of water, like submerging in water, not like showers and stuff. You obviously want to clean your tattoo. You just don't want it sitting in something that's going to be a hotbed for bacteria, right? A lot of people like using products like Second Skin or Tegaderm on the tattoo. It's like a film barrier that goes over top of it. People are not tolerant of that are like allergic to adhesives or things like that.
Does that stay on for a couple days or something?
It does, okay. Yeah. So that's more like you're wearing a barrier on top of your tattoo for multiple days. It's a little more like set it, forget it kind of thing. But your tattoo heals underneath that, and it kind of gives you a barrier that you maybe won't pick at your tattoo, or keeps it covered for jobs that might be dirty, or maybe you work in like a hospital or clinic environment that you want to keep your tattoo covered. The more traditional method of healing a tattoo is like keeping it bandaged for a couple hours before you go home, and then washing it every day to make sure it's staying clean with some sort of like moisturizing over that couple weeks.
Unscented
stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. Things that are not going to actively irritate your skin.
No essential oils going on the...
Nope. As much as you think that those are going to help. Nope. It's not.
Yeah. I have another story, speaking of picking the tattoo. A few years ago, I was tattooing a client who had apparently lost a bet. His buddies were allowed to tattoo something behind his shoulder as long as it wasn't racist or offensive. Turns out the guy drew up a design of, quote unquote, a leprechaun throwing up on a book. Sure, why not? Everyone was sober. That's a key part of the story. Everyone was sober, and they were paying up front. Easy work, the drawing was really simple, and the shading was easier than I thought it'd be. Turns out everyone liked it, except the guy with the tattoo of the leprechaun throwing up on the book. Mm-hmm. He picked at the scab, trying to get rid of it. Completely took it from bad to worse. Comes in about 10 days later demanding a refund of the money he didn't even pay to cover it up. Nope, management said you signed for it in your right mind and then damaged it yourself. Personally, I was yelled at and told never to tattoo anyone like that. It only works in television series or film. Did I make a mistake? Yes and no. The lesson here is don't get involved in others' drama when permanent body markings are involved.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I agree with the concept of like not refunding this person. They did make an active choice to get this tattoo. Yep. Really not great that they picked at it. Like that's opening it up to become like much more of a problem than if you had just left it. And then there's things you could do later to either cover it, maybe get it removed. Making it into an active wound is a bad plan. That's
you will not remove your tattoo by picking it off.
No, and you could, if you end up with an infection or something in it, like that could be just a way worse outcome than having a bad leprechaun tattooed on you. I would, if you really don't like it, I would go look into getting it removed. But at the same time, I've definitely run into situations more in the past when I would do walk-in tattoos where if you don't truly think that the person getting tattooed wants the tattoo, I would always find ways to skirt around and not doing it.
Because there's like a group, a party group pressure that comes because it's like a risky, fun thing for everybody to do.
Yeah. I've had instances, where it's a couple that comes in and clearly one person...
Like a couple tattoo?
Yeah. Ooh. And usually like of a name. And it seems like one person wants the other person to get their name on them and they don't. And
you can pull them aside and
I've never pulled them aside. What I usually did in that scenario, if I kind of picked up on bad vibes, was I would find ways to say that like no one was available to tattoo them that day. Granted, they could go down the street and they could find somebody else to do that tattoo, but it put another barrier in between that person getting a tattoo they didn't want. And especially if it's a group or somebody that seems like they're forcing somebody to get something that they don't want. I don't love that. So I do think that there is a little bit of a responsibility to notice that and maybe try to skirt around it or say no if you don't feel comfortable with it. But if ultimately that person does sign the form and decide that they're going to go for it, there are several points in that process that they can say no. You know, you can say no right away. You could say no when the stencil's on. You could say no halfway through the tattoo and the artist should stop. There's no there's no point in time that you can't say no to it. But the artists themselves, if they notice something's off, should probably say no as well.
So this story, it said that everyone was sober. But it's kind of a notorious situation, the drunken tattoo, where people, you black out, you wake up with a tattoo the next day. Have you ever had somebody show up too intoxicated or out of sound mind to receive a tattoo?
Now, I don't ever have that happen because people don't really drink during the hours that I'm planning on getting tattooed.
It's definitely more of that tattoo shop, late night tattoo shop.
For sure. We definitely had a couple instances where people would come in intoxicated. And if you notice that they were intoxicated, we would actively say, no, we can't do this. You need to come back on a different day. Actually, the weirder thing that we would deal with at my previous shop was actually people coming from the emergency room across the street.
You were right across from the hospital.
Yep. So, like, not inebriated, but like people were not in their right mind necessarily when they came. I very distinctly remember early on in my tattoo career, a man walking through the door and emphatically putting his hand on the table and saying, I want to get my hand tattooed like a skeleton hand, and I want it to be swirling into the abyss so it represents that I could die at any moment. And that was heavy to receive. And I was like, that was a lot. Like, something happened that you want to get this tattoo today. And he turned his head to the side, and I noticed that he had like at least 6 giant staples in a wound on the side of his head.
Like fresh staples.
Yeah. So clearly this man came from across the street from the emergency room, was probably a little hopped up on pain medicine. And I don't really know why they released him by himself, to be honest, but
he was alone?
He was alone. Yep. And he came into the shop and, you know, he was like, well, I had this idea, you know, and I was like, well, sir, it doesn't, first of all, he had no tattoos.
Oh gosh.
And also, you know, he wanted his hand tattooed. He did not seem like he was in his right mind. So I talked him down from it. I'm like, hey, this is not something, you know, that anybody has time to do today. Seems like you maybe been through a little bit today. And I think we should pick another day to work on this. Maybe go home and think about it. You can put together some reference stuff.
Heal that head wound.
Yeah, heal that head wound. maybe come back on a different day to discuss this if you think you truly want it. And he asked if he could wait around until somebody came to pick him up, because that's honestly what most people would do. They would treat us like a secondary waiting room for other people to come pick them up.
Yeah.
And in that period of time, we found out that he was like a delivery biker and he got hit by a car. So that man had been through
like all that day.
Oh, that same day. Yeah. So that's when, you know, you just have to, that one was pretty obvious, but you have to pay attention when people come in and they seem a little bit off, and just make sure that they're okay and that they seem like they're in the right mind to make the decision to get tattooed.
What about, I mean, to that, when people don't feel well, like just because the tattoo is so it's strenuous on your body and your nervous system and your body. People react, they shake, they faint. Like, have you had instances like that where you've had to provide some medical attention to people?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of why we have a bowl of candy, right? Like, you think, oh, this is nice. There's a little treat here, you know, but like, it's mostly so we can get a quick delivery of sugar into somebody if they are not feeling well.
And what's in your candy bowl right now?
Jolly Ranchers.
Jolly Ranchers.
Yeah. The watermelon are a big fave. Everybody goes for those. I also have those like little strawberry candies.
Yeah, those are
used
delicious.
to be in Grandma's candy dish.
Yep. Grandma's candy.
But yeah, I mean, it takes a lot out of you getting tattooed. And sometimes your body just says no that day. And if that's the case, you know, either you can take breaks. You should be getting breaks regardless.
Yeah,
right?
I have seen this video going around of a guy who got like 10 hours of a full back tattoo, complete neck to tailbone.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's just tremoring. And I'm watching that. Everybody's like, oh, it's so cool. Look at what we did in 10 hours. I'm like, this poor guy, his body must be in such shock.
Yeah. And like, you wonder how much of that is like, the artist wanted to push to get it done, or like the client wanted to push to get it done.
Yeah.
But either way, I've seen that video and his body's clearly in shock after he's got this done. You know, you really just have to pay attention to your own body while you're getting tattooed. I try to really pay attention to cues from the person I'm working on to make sure that they're doing okay. But having time to stand up, take breaks, have some water, have some snacks.
Eat before you go to your appointment.
Please eat before you come to your appointment. You want to make sure that you're prepared to sit for it because it takes a lot out of you.
Right.
And there's certain positions that I don't put people in anymore because I think they're more likely to get a head rush and such. Making sure people are getting up and down out of the chair slowly. Yeah, don't be a hero. If you feel like you are done, you can be done.
Tap out.
Yeah.
Yep. This one's quick, but it makes me laugh. I tattooed Philippines 413 instead of Philippians 413 on a girl one time. Fortunately, I was able to fix it. So that's great. But oh no. Some of these are spelling error related, which I would love to talk about too. So let me read you another one. My only spelling mistake ever was in Italian. Girl wants a phrase in Italian. She writes it down no less than 5 times on a piece of paper. I tell her to make sure it is correct. I don't speak Italian. She insists it's correct. I draw up some nice script, tattoo it with no issues, bandage, pay, and she leaves. She comes back in hysterical and tells me I spelled it wrong. I hadn't thrown out the paper. I spelled it exactly how she spelled it. I asked what she wanted to do, and she decided, no one I know speaks Italian. That was about 15 years ago. I often wonder if she ended up getting it covered.
Yeah, I mean, I actively make people write it on the consent form.
Yep.
Yeah. My spelling is not my job.
No.
Especially once we get to the actual tattoo itself. I am no longer writing. I am drawing. I'm following the line. So if it is spelled wrong in the stencil, I'm not going to notice.
Yep.
Everything starts to look really weird once you write it out, especially if you write it out like 5 times. Like the word happy or something.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yep.
Is that correct? You know, that's why you have them write it on the consent form. I show it to them in the stencil. I have them double check like at least 5 times. Ultimately, the person who wants the tattoo needs to know how to spell what they want. Same goes for Roman numerals. I am not studying up on that.
Yep.
You can do your own research and come in with what you want for Roman numerals. And then I will tattoo what you decide you want.
Yeah, especially with foreign languages.
Yeah.
You are trusting. I mean, now we have AI, but people are just trusting whatever translation they get off the internet, assuming that it's whatever words they want in symbols or another language. And it's just, that's such a risk.
Yeah. If that's what you want, then you should you have to make sure it's correct for yourself.
Yep.
And then I will happily make it look nice on you.
Yes. Yeah. TLDR, this one was really long, but I took the TLDR version. Client wanted tattoos over the bend of their knuckles. Me, as an apprentice at the time, said it's a bad idea. My mentor came in and also said it was a bad idea. The client had us do it anyways and didn't take time off. They didn't take time off work. They went back to their job immediately the same day as a barista. I'm assuming this is a similar situation as the people who are tanning or jumping in the lake. They didn't take care of them at all and then came back 2 months later screaming at me that I'm a horrible person and suck at my job. How dare you, etc., because their knuckles were painfully scarred, even though we said that was going to happen if they did it. Sounds like a brutal barista gig, but also just the lack of care. I feel like we touched on this, but I feel like people just don't understand. They know a tattoo is painful.
Yeah.
They don't understand that it's a wound
Right.
after the fact.
Right.
Like it's not just painful as it's getting done. It literally is scarring that you have to, right? Well, I don't know the technical, what is happening, but it's literally scratching your body.
Yeah. I mean, like you're going into the like second layer of skin, and that's where you're depositing ink there. Hands specifically are probably going to need a touch up. In like finger stuff, especially like if it was around like the bends, that's something that like I would probably be like, hey, I would love to see this when this is healed, just to see if I need to touch it up. And I would make sure that the person getting that tattoo has that expectation before I do it.
Right.
But again, knowing what you may or may not have to do after you get something done, I assume somebody like a barista is going to be needing to use their hands and also like probably washing their hands
dipping
pretty
them in
consistently.
Like bleach water at the restaurant.
Yeah, like I've tattooed a lot of people who bartend too, and if it's anything that's going to be on your hands, like you do need to be aware that like things that you do in those first couple of days after you get your hands tattooed, you might have to skip some activities at your job or plan around it, right? Also, just making sure that like somebody knows how the tattoo that they're getting is going to heal over time. I think it's very important to discuss at a consult. For places like your fingers, generally things don't stay as long.
They tend to wear because of the use.
Yeah, because you're using your hands a lot, especially, as you get into like further down on feet also as well, like where it looks like your skin changes and gets like shinier and almost more wrinkly, like it's much more likely to fall out in that skin. There's some artists that really specialize in doing like palm and like under feet tattoos and stuff. But when you are healing those, there's specific things that you may or may not be able to do. Also, just the expectation of this is how I'm going to design your tattoo so it has the ability to spread out over time. All of those things should be discussed at a consult so you don't run into things like that.
Yeah.
Also, just don't love when people come in hot like that.
Yeah.
Why don't you just ask if something went wrong? If you come at me calmly and talk to me about what you think went wrong, we can discuss how we can touch it up or what the plan would be. Not everything is like the end of the world.
It feels
too.
dire for people.
Right.
I'm sure it feels dire.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But that person, it sounds like it's not necessarily the artist's fault either. But like, even in that case, like just come in with a cool head, and the person that did the tattoo is much more likely to help you than if you come in and scream at them.
To that, I think you're very skilled in cover-ups. And I wanted to see if you could talk about that side of tattooing, because you've done a lot of things where, they've come from someone else, or it's a tattoo, whether it's a bad tattoo or a tattoo they just don't want anymore, or they want to enhance or, integrate into some other piece.
Yeah.
You have quite what I look at as a spectacular process for being able to like blend the old tattoo into something new and actually cover it up so it looks like part of something new.
Yeah, I mean, the foundation of a good cover-up is having somebody who's willing to allow you to do something that's actually going to work as a cover-up.
You need to have creative freedom with a cover-up.
Unfortunately, like there's certain things that can work well for cover-ups, and there's certain things that don't. I think sometimes the initial thought is, oh, I'm just going to throw black over this thing, and often that doesn't work because what if the skin underneath it is scarred in any way or a different shade of black,
right?
Sometimes it often shows through more prominently than if you were to do something else over top. Designing something that has lines or pockets of contrast that can distract from what's there works infinitely better than just blasting over it, unless that's the look you're going for. But not everything works as a cover-up. So if you are open to You need to be open to the person creating it for you to be able to design something that's going to work. And it's likely going to have to be bigger than what you have currently.
Of course. Yeah. A lot of these are people who were not taking care of their tattoos correctly. I was disgusted so much. One day I was waiting for my client. I made an abstract tattoo all over her arm. It was in the healing phase. She came in and I asked, asked to show me her tattoo. It looked bad, as dry as a desert. I told her that she's not healing it correctly and that she needs to start moisturizing it. She legit took her hand, spit on it, and applied the spit on the fresh tattoo and said, "Here, it's moisturized."
Okay. Oh, no.
Yep. Yeah. So spit, while we did say unscented products, I'd say saliva is not in that collection of approved moisturizers.
No, I don't love that.
No.
Honestly, if somebody did that in front of me, I'd probably be like,
no.
I think we're done here.
I think we're done here. I think, yeah. Okay. This is out of my hands. But
Yeah.
same thing. It's out of your hands after that, at that point.
Right.
The tattoo, you gave someone all of the information they needed to heal it correctly. And if they're not following it and they think that that's an appropriate way to.
Same, you know what, though? Like, same goes for children and pets. Don't let your pet lick your tattoo either.
Oh,
you know, like if you think that's gonna happen, cover it up.
Yep. That's if you think there's a possibility that there's gonna be some wound licking. Gosh, the last 2 episodes we've been talking about wounds like this. It's just an interesting bridge. I was working in a shop in New York City. This very heavy-set gentleman came in and wanted a full back piece, no other tattoos. The design was very elaborate and quite good. Once it was all approved, the tattoo stencil was applied and again approved by the client. I wasn't doing the tattoo, but I was occasionally checking in on the process. Once the line work was done and the shading had begun, I noticed something horrible. The stencil had been applied over the rolls of his skin on his lower back. I made a comment to the artist privately. He went back to tattooing, moved the skin apart at one point, and without a doubt, several inches of untattooed skin were between the image. The client never noticed. I stopped working there not too long after that, not for this reason, but I've always felt so bad for that guy.
That's unfortunate and something that probably should have been noticed off the bat. I mean, I've seen designs that are really cool that actually like utilize
intentionally,
like utilize like rolls and stuff on someone's back, so like has it kind of going in and out of that. This sounds like it's something that maybe had background to it or something on this back piece. Yeah, when you're placing something, you do have to think about that.
Right. The anatomy and structure of someone's body on any part is where I guess you would have to take into consideration.
Likely when that man is standing, it's not a problem and you can't see it.
Right.
But if that person's weight fluctuates in any way, or when they physically move their body, like stretch their arms up in the air, you might be able to see that there's a giant space missing there. So it's just from person to person, when you're placing something, you do need to pay attention to things like that.
Do you have people kind of stand and sit and see how the stencil will move?
I do, yeah. There's, especially with torso stuff, I don't like putting faces on certain spots on your torso, because if you move your body, the whole face is going to But you want to see how it's going to move when somebody is just living their life. You kind of stand rather robotically when you get the stencil put on. But I do try to encourage people to like move around in front of the mirror and kind of like see how it fits.
At it, see, like,
and you know, not everybody's necessarily willing to do that. So I kind of try to walk around and like observe too. But placement, I think, is a huge part of tattooing, maybe one of the most important parts, because even if you have a really nice tattoo, which it sounds like, you know, this might be a really nice tattoo, if it's placed wrong, it's not going to be as good.
Yeah. What about people who insist on weird placement? Like people who want something upside down so that they can read it when they lift their arm up, or so it's backwards in the mirror or something, those weird, like, placement requests.
Yeah. I mean, like, I try to give my suggestions as much as possible, but at the end of the day, it's not my tattoo.
Right.
If they really want it in a certain way so they can look at it, it's important to them. And so that's going to be what I tattoo on them, is what they're going to want. But I do try to steer people in a direction if it seems like they want something in a spot that I know it's not going to heal well or look good with clothing or something. If there's like a weird part that sticks out in just like your average sleeve or something, then we probably want to move it, because if that's the shirt you wear every day and there's just this weird stick that comes out or something, I'm going to try and talk to the person and make sure they're at least aware of the choice that they're making when it comes to the placement.
Yeah. Unfortunately, during my apprenticeship, I messed up plenty of tattoos. My mentor wouldn't exactly mentor me. He would pop in while I was tattooing, say nothing, and leave, then give me advice after the fact instead of giving me direction during the process so I wouldn't fuck things up. I wasn't allowed to buy machines. He was very old school. I had to build my own machine and needles. Well, I'm not mechanically inclined at all, so I constantly had machines on the fritz, which of course affects everything. He also wouldn't give me a reliable power source. I had to use this massive, ancient power source from the 80s that appeared to be used by hospitals. It would go on the fritz, making at times my needles stop right in the skin, making me cut them. What a nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What about your machinery? Like, that's a part of tattooing that the clients don't know a lot about, but I know you've made your own machines. Like, that's part of.
No,
is that part of the culture?
I've actually never fully assembled my machine. I can take certain parts of it and apart and maybe like tune things to run better. That's one thing that I think has started to like shift out of apprenticeships. And I don't necessarily think that that's a good thing. I think that knowing how to, I wish I knew more about building traditional tattoo machines. I think that would help a little bit. And it's something that like I could go and explore.
Is that something that's part of the culture? Like this
this sounds specifically like a tattooer from, he's just kind of an old school tattooer that the making your own needles and things like that, you know, was a thing.
Yeah.
Like up until I feel like in the 90s, people were still making their needles, probably even early 2000s, right? Now it's much easier to get those supplies made. And you can get them made by tattooers and stuff too, if you want to continue to like support people in the trade and not just like large companies that are making things like that. Having it be the only thing that you're allowed to use, I think is a little odd considering the availability of supplies and things now. Yeah. That just seems like that this person has somebody that's a little bit stuck in a specific era and that it's not really helping them with their apprenticeship. It's almost like we almost need a blend between those two things but there are battery operated like rotary machines that don't require things like the power supply and stuff that they're mentioning. That a lot of people start tattooing on now and don't know anything about the more traditional tattoo machines, like the coil machines. Those can be used for different styles, and it kind of depends on who's teaching you, like whether or not, or what kind of tattoos you're doing, what might work better for you. But it sounds like the mentality of this mentor is maybe not helping this person and maybe needs to shift to being able to like maybe at least buy their own needles from a supplier.
Well, it's like he's hurting people because of this now. So I do want to ask you about a couple things I've seen, like trends I've seen in the tattoo world. The first one is this like hiring a tattoo artist to come to your wedding or your birthday party or a networking event that just bring, they're doing a lot of little tiny, nothing major. But I've seen like permanent jewelry, these kinds of things. But tattooing is more popular now. Just the casualness of getting a tattoo.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen one at like a food event where like with a bunch of different vendors and stuff to get like, I don't know, but Sailor Jerry literally had a tattooer, right? And so they were actively giving people alcohol and having a tattooer at the event, which I thought was a little odd. It's on
brand, but yikes.
Yeah, it could be a fun little choice. It's not really my cup of tea. I don't feel like I want to go do a bunch of tiny little tattoos at like a wedding or something. But but hey, if that really strikes you as something you want to do, it sounds like a lot.
It is a lot.
And I assume that you probably have to have some sort of like temporary licenses or things like that to be able to operate outside of like an establishment. Yeah, I don't know how that works, or if people are just
winging
going for it.
Just going for it. Yeah. Okay, another trend I've seen is this idea of people going under anesthesia to get tattoos. So we're trying to kind of get around the idea of conscious pain. And we do have a video to show you of someone doing just that. So let's look at the video.
You've been waiting for this for a while, right?
Yeah, super excited.
There you go.
A little nervous,
Nervous?
but hopefully nice and quick. No pain. No pain, no gain.
No pain, no gain.
Well, luckily with this, you're not going to have any pain.
Exactly.
Watch out with your hand.
You ready to go night-night?
Okay. I have a lot of questions, but I'd love to know your initial reaction.
You ready to go night-night?
Ready to go night-night? Ick. Not now.
I'm confused by this whole situation. I don't have a whole lot of knowledge about like how they're doing this. This from what I can see in this video, it seems like this is a specific.
It's like a sedation
business.
Spa. Yes, they do Sedation Inc. is what it's called.
Yeah. Okay. It's putting your body and like yourself in actually a little bit more danger than actually going to get tattooed. Something that it would take 7 hours. I think that's what they're planning on doing in this video. It also said 6 artists working on it for 7 hours.
So it's a bunch of people who have like grab a limb and just do their own piece.
Yeah. Yeah. So a little bit of me is like, okay, what style of tattoo are 6 different artists working on? I would assume that it's probably realism because I feel like it would be kind of a mash of other styles
we didn't get
otherwise.
To see the
we don't get to see the
results.
tattoo, which is interesting. But like, I think the risks of going under anesthesia to get a tattoo are higher than if you were to just have
far outweigh just
done.
Getting a tattoo.
Yeah.
And doing it safely in multiple sessions.
Right. Granted, this would take multiple sessions, most likely. You know, you would have to sit through the pain, but this seems elaborate. And honestly, I feel like it's a little bit of just kind of like a flex of I have money and not I have a cool tattoo. I feel like it's more like, look at how much money I had to pay for a operating room where I could get tattooed. This is the first time I'm seeing something where it like clearly is a specific business where, because I've always wondered, like, where are they getting these operating rooms? Where are they getting anesthesiologists to come?
They have to be anesthesiologists.
I would think so.
There's no way.
Hope so.
And is it full it's full sedation then?
Yeah,
I would assume.
That I don't know. You know?
I mean, it said intubated, yeah.
Right.
So this is fully under.
Yeah.
And you come out a completely different person.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine you're then recovering from the shock your body must feel when you wake up after anesthesia and you already have that shock of like your body's been out and, you know.
Yeah.
And then you have pain on your whole body. Just that rush must be insane.
Yeah. And I feel like it takes away from the kind of the tradition of getting tattooed.
Right. I feel like that's a big criticism of this is like, if you can't handle the pain, don't get the tattoo.
Yeah. Like, I understand, you know, getting a back piece is a big time commitment, but you're not interacting with your artist really on any level during any of this. As the artist during doing this tattoo, I feel like it actually has to be done by like 6 people because I would not want to work like that.
No.
If I was going to do a very large piece, especially a back piece, I would want to be able to revisit that at multiple sessions. Not just because I don't want to sit there and like have to tattoo them for that extended period of time. It's more like you get to come back to it and you can kind of look at stuff and edit things. When it's that big of a piece, you can touch things up at another session.
I was going to say, are we coming back and doing this again in 8 years for a touch-up? Full body touch-up?
Well, and also like there's 6 different people tattooing this person. So like somebody's like ability or style better match up in a way that makes this look cohesive. I don't love it. I think it's just a flex of I have money in order to afford such a thing.
I don't think that flex is nearly as like, personally, I'm like,
I think it'd just be way cooler.
It'd be cooler if you handled
piece.
The pain and proved that you got the back piece.
Yeah. I also love that she says no pain, no gain when they're going in there. I'm like,
she means no pain.
Yeah. like that's not really what that means.
Delayed
but okay.
pain. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last segment for today is basically we have a rapid fire questions. We asked our community on Instagram last week. We asked a question before every podcast episode, and then we share the answers, and we'll get yours as well. But this week's question was, what's the best investment you've made in your business?
Okay.
RM Creative Services said reliable hard drives and her ergonomic desk chair. I know before we filmed, you had mentioned the ergonomic chair.
Yeah. I think that is incredibly important for any tattooer to have a chair that helps them be able to tattoo.
Yeah.
Honestly, I have the best, what I think is probably a top of the line ergonomic chair, and I still have pain.
still hurt.
It's a great investment. It's lessened it, but yeah, get yourself a good chair.
Would massage be a good investment on that as well?
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
Yep.
At Stelly's Ice Cream said, it's a walk-in freezer for me. Definitely necessity for an ice cream shop. At Harmony Hill Farm Sanctuary says, hiring for the right people to be on your team. Just Bake by Lucy says, boxes for shipping. Definitely a necessity for bakery. Verona Bounce, Electric Dolly. And then she followed up saying Electric Dolly times 3, actually. So definitely a industry-specific investment for sure. Miggy's Bakes, accountant, bookkeeper right away. Do you do your own books?
I enter my own books. I don't do any of my own tax stuff.
Yes. So a CPA is definitely a good investment.
Yeah.
And then Stump Studios says a new MacBook.
Yep.
Definitely. That would be mine for sure. In my business, it's my electronics, my desktop, my laptop, my iPad. What has been the best investment you've made in your business?
The initial investment that I made that helped me open my business was actually like going to get specific training in the type of medical tattooing that I was going to do. Because I'd had 3 years of tattoo background leading up to this, but going to learn how to do placement of areola tattoos and kind of other skills that are kind of separate from the art world of tattooing, I think was a pretty good investment. At that time was in 2016, and there just wasn't quite as many options for things like that actually here in the US. So I went to the UK, to a place called Finishing Touches, where I learned how to do stuff there. It was a very valuable experience, learning how to do placement, color matching. There was a lot of things that I learned there that I think help me in my day-to-day doing that with people now. There's a lot of things that I chose to leave there that I was like, I actually don't love how they're doing this. That I combined with some of the more traditional stuff that I learned. But taking the time to go and spending the money to be able to like go do additional training, I think was a good choice.
Awesome. Okay, so that's going to be all for our episode today. But where can people find you online to follow your work?
Well, you can find me on Instagram at Shade Tattoo Studio.
Excellent.
You can also go to my website and sign up for email newsletter stuff. I think that's honestly one of the better ways to get last minute availability or when my book's open, things like that. So
and what's the website?
So that's shademedtattoo.com.
Excellent. Thank you. This was fun.
Of course. I had a great time.
If you have a small biz nightmare you'd like to share, you can submit your story through the form in our description box below. Also, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and follow along with us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok to see what we're up to. And until next time, sweet dreams.